Chapter 15 is about using communication skills as you enter the workplace. We're going to look at contemporary jobs in communication, how to produce a winning resume, writing a convincing cover letter, mastering the job interview, and then there's some more tips for the interview. There's also building connections, and in today's world, connections are everything. It's who you know. First thing, we need to look at pursuing a communication degree, and we need to look at communication skills. They are always in demand. Don't forget that. Contemporary jobs in communication include speech writing, PR professionals, audio editors, and we can include YouTube channel operators on that. Snapchat professionals, I'm sure there's people out there, Twitter account managers, all kinds of things. Writers, reporters, editors. There's a social media manager. Teachers, actually, we communicate too. Business consultants, web designers, administrative assistants, creative planners, and motivational speakers. You can see by this chart the organizations. There's different tellers or different titles. I was looking at bank teller at the time I said that. You don't think of a bank teller as a communication person, but they are. Tour guides. You go to work for Disney for a summer. You're a tour guide. You're a communicator. Managers of motels and hotels. Well, actually, probably not motels, but big hotels, the really big ones with maybe 1,000 rooms. Huge communication skills are needed. Fundraisers are a big thing, not just phone operators, but people that actually work with the public and they go out and do fundraising meetings. Small business owners are really, really in need of huge communication skills. Having been a small business owner myself, I had to do everything and wanted to do everything. My communication skills made a difference from me going nowhere to actually being fairly sizable for small businesses that I did run. Flight attendants, government lobbyists, salespeople, project managers, all of these jobs require communication. And this is just a partial list. There's so many more. Any job that you have, I'm going to tell you right now, probably involves communication, one way, shape, or form. The skills most commonly sought by employers, the number one are verbal communication skills. This is a big thing. If I hire you, you need and I need to be able to talk to each other. If I ask you a question, you can't give me an answer, you'll never make it past the interview. A lot of companies, in a lot of businesses, in a lot of jobs, a lot of organizations, no matter what it is, require people talking to people, not just sending out text messages, although that does require a lot of skill too to get it right so it's understood. We can call that information processing, possibly. But verbal communication, it's key. Teamwork skills are really big. That's why we do the group speech, because even though people think they may work alone in their job, I had a computer engineer. He said, I'm going to build computers. I don't have to deal with anybody ever. And I said, I'll bet you 10 grand, but I'm not, because I'm going to win this argument. He says, all right, I'll take that fake bet. Well, I said, how are you going to order your parts? Well, I'm going to enter it on a computer screen and send an email to somebody. Teamwork, huh? Because you're sending an email. And right there, the argument was over. And he understood really clearly. And I could see in his eyes that he understood it too. Decision-making and problem-solving skills are really important. Some people just have a tough time making decisions. There's a lot of different ways to do this. The better you are at making decisions and sticking to them, it's okay. And if you make mistakes, hey, mistakes happen. But then you fix that, because that's problem-solving skills as well. You have to be organized. You have to be able to prioritize. And you have to be able to plan. Many, many positions require this on a very fast-paced level. Others, sometimes it could be a year to 5 years ahead of time, depending on the organization, what it is that's going on. Then again, there's information processing skills. If they say, hey, we're going to send you away for 2 weeks a year, and you're going to go down to, say, Houston, Texas, and you're going to go to all these seminars, and then for another week, we're going to send you to New York City, and then maybe to Alaska, and then maybe overseas to Europe somewhere. You have to be able to bring back that information for your company. They're giving you a big paycheck, most likely. You need to bring back the dividends to make the profit. And that shouldn't be too complicated of a thing. If somebody's giving you money, you need to give them something back in return, not just a warm body filling a position. Producing the winning resume. If you don't have a resume now, I would suggest that you start. Now, you may not have any information to put on there yet, but that's okay. Start it, because as you get experience, as you receive more education, you can start to build this. You may not need a resume for maybe 4 to 10 years. That's okay. But you may need it next week. You don't know. So start working on this. Some things to look at with resumes. The first thing is style. Before you can show off who you are to an interviewer, I want you to think about this. Your resume represents you when you can't be there to a future employer. Okay? So it's you on paper. It's one-dimensional. You're three-dimensional. That resume has to be nice and beyond nice too. You'll need to impress potential employers with structure and effective writing of what you've done. When we talk about style in a resume, it refers to the way you use language and grammar to reconstruct your written materials. So the way you use words out loud are different than how you can do it on paper. But if you have to recite your words out loud, you want to be careful of that too. So be careful of the words that you do choose to type out versus speak out. Use descriptive clauses that begin with action verbs rather than using complete sentences that begin with pronoun I. So in your resume, you're not going to say, I did this, and I do that, and I do this, and I do that. That's your cover letter. But in the resume, it's different. This is all part of style. Descriptive clauses relate to current employment, begin with present tense action verbs. Previous experiences begin with past tense action verbs. So I am a teacher right now, me. I can't say I'm a teacher. Teach Intro to Human Communication classes. Okay, it's descriptive. In the past, I used to teach DKS classes, or the Destination Kent State classes, the first year experience. Taught first year experience classes. So teach, taught, current, past. You don't put future in resumes. That goes into your cover letter. And generally, we don't even talk about that because it's not an experience yet. The content is key in building a good resume. The number one thing that you should put on a resume, and I actually, when I had a company, I had a resume turned in. We don't know whose it was because there was no name. The person dropped it off, and all my staff could remember it was a girl. What'd she look like? Don't remember. Really? So she actually was nobody. I mean, and somebody walked in a month later and said, hey, did you get my resume? We're like, no. Now, when it comes to the information that should go on there for your name, obviously your name, make it big, 18-point, bold. Let them know your name. That's your name. Make sure somebody else knows it. Because remember, the resume is representing you when you can't be there to speak for yourself. Other contact information, your physical mailing address in case they need to send you some paper forms, your phone number, obviously, and make sure it's a phone number that you have access to. Don't give them your friend's phone because you're embarrassed to get calls on your cell phone or something. Just make sure it's legit. The biggest thing is to get an email address on there. Now, which email should you use? If you have a Yahoo, a Gmail, an AOL, should you use pinkfluffypoofyslippers.com? No, use your kent.edu address. The reason is it shows you're a student. It shows you go to Kent because you know what? There's a lot of Kent alumni out there. And if somebody sees that kent.edu, it might catch their eye more than the person that doesn't have that address. So make sure you use that. You're also going to put in your skills. You're going to put in your work experience, honors and activity, and your education. Now, this gets a little complicated and really long-winded. We could do a whole series of seminars on resume writing. I highly suggest you go to YouTube, you go to the library, you go to your academic advisor, you go to the career counselor. They can give you better examples of this. There is a lot of information on resumes, almost too much. Remember that information overload? Well, resume writing is one of those things. You want to find 1 or 2 people to review your work and then don't go any further, okay? Too many cooks spoil the soup, so to say. So too much input on a resume could be very, very confusing. Find somebody you trust, somebody you like, somebody that's not too judgmental, but will critique you in a sound way and support you. Find that person and stick with them. Key recommendations for your resume and the content. Quality information. Use it as much as possible on your resume. Now, short and sweet and concise works, but you got to also be consistent with stylistic decisions you make on your resume. The font, New York Times, okay, Calibre, nothing else. Do not use wedding dings, script things. People can't read that stuff. If you've ever gotten a party invitation or wedding invitation with super fancy script, who's this from? I actually got one in the mail. I had to call my mom to find out, were any of our cousins getting married? She said, yeah. And I'm like, who is it? She goes, you couldn't read it? I'm like, no. She goes, neither could she. She called somebody to find out. So be careful on the fancy scripts. Basic, simple, keep it neat and clean. Again, be concise and view your resume as an appetizer because, again, it's representing you and you can't be there to represent yourself. If it's not neat, you must not be neat. Oh, be neat and proofread. Geez, those little red underlines, I try to get rid of them in this presentation because I'm not on slideshow. But when we see names on it, you'll see that little red squiggly line. That means fix it. It doesn't mean wrong. It means fix it. The other thing is you always want to show your resume to an English teacher if possible because they'll catch good stuff like that. Include an objective statement on each resume you send out. An objective is, I want to work to make money. No, that is not an objective statement. Again, this gets really long-winded in how to do this. But what is your objective with this resume that you sent to this company? Okay. Highlight your education, any degrees you've been awarded, their completion dates, schools you have attended, majors, minors, and absolutely put honors and or any earned scholarships that you wrote and got. Now, if you don't have enough academic experience yet or haven't even graduated high school, it's going to be a little confusing. And again, long conversation. We can fix this later and we'll have to have that off mic because it is pretty long on how to do this, but it can be done. So don't stress over that. In list form, describe the relevant jobs and job duties you've held. This is a really big thing to do. I've held, I don't know how many jobs, but too many to put on, probably 10 sheets of paper over the years and decades. So I only put the relevant ones back to maybe 10 years now. I can go back 30 years easily, but it's just too much information. So again, pick and choose what you're going to put on there. If you only worked a job for a day, skip it. There's a reason you didn't do it. Unless it was working as a volunteer and it was only a one-day event, but make sure it's very clear this is a one-day event. Or if you're a camp counselor for 2 weeks or a month, it looks like, oh, you got hired and then fired or you quit. So make sure 1 month term as camp counselor. There's again, ways to do these things. Use strong action verbs on your resume. This is really important in content. I'm not going to go through these words, read these. Notice most of them end in ED. Those are very strong words. There's lists all over the internet. If I remember, I'll try to bring this sheet in and pass this out. I keep this actually on my desk. Oh, I can't show you because I'm not a microphone, but it sits on my desk on the side here. So when I'm writing, I can just kind of peek over and look at a word. The other trick is you can hover over a word, right click it in Word and look for synonyms. And this is a good way to build your word structure too when you're building that resume. Chronological resumes and functional resumes, two very different things. When to use them, it's up to you, but based on the job, you should know this. So chronological resumes, it's basically to show the jobs that you've had in order from the most current to the moldiest, oldest, way down the list. In a functional resume, it shows all of the experiences that you encountered, even slightly, even if just once. That's an experience. If you can remember it, it counts. Sometimes functional works really good on a hands-on or a process-oriented job that you're going for. So again, talk to people, ask about it, and realistically, you should have 2 resumes. I used to have 3 different kind of resumes. I had a chronological, I had a functional, and what's called a CV or curriculum vitae, and I only use a curriculum vitae right now because of education. But the curriculum vitae is kind of chronological, kind of functional, with a lot of extra twists and turns in it because it's very, very different in format. But for you, unless you're going into education, you're going to use one of these 2. Again, a basic layout. Now, I'm going to tell you right now, don't put lines and images on your resume. And the reason being this, a lot of resumes are scanned for errors before they even get to human people through HR software. And if they see a line in there, it might error and might kick it out of the system. So please try not to use lines. Utilize spacing rather than the line. Back in the day, my very first job in computers I created it was called Optimal Printing, and it started from a resume writing service, and then it turned into a full-blown printing company. I was really good at resumes. We did not have computers scanning resumes. I actually was one of the few people that had a computer with software with a really good laser printer to print things out. We used to actually put people's faces on the resume in what's called the screen, or a very light image in the background. Again, your resume represents you when you can't be there. And when that face was on there, it was huge because we had no internet. We had no social media back then. And it really made a big difference to see who the person was that they were hiring. Again, layouts, there's 100 different ways, maybe 1,000 different ways to do resumes. In some, when you're lacking of experiences and you need to fill that giant white space, put your references on that page. So that's another cheat way to fill in the gap. And it kind of economizes paper too, and it shows that you're really thinking outside the box, but within the edges of the paper. So again, ask somebody, see what happens, see what they think about it. In the functional resume, let's go back real quick. The chronological, you can see there's dates over on the right. And then the functional adds in the skill summary. So they've bulleted all these different things. And again, get to know the job and the company where you're going to be, because those are the things that they want to see that you know how to do. The cover letter needs to go with your resume. You cannot just send a resume and expect somebody to read it. You got to give them a reason to do that. And that's what the cover letter's for. Cover letters are your salesperson. They're your persuasive document to say, hey, this is me. This is who I am. Now, please read my resume. Okay, so think about it that way. Cover letters should be put and help your resume form a better picture of who you are. So it helps put your resume into perspective. It's going to sound a little redundant if you do your cover letter right, but it's kind of the appetizer to your resume, if you will. And I hate to keep bringing up food. It must be lunchtime. But your cover letter gets them interested in to learn more about you. So, oh, wow, they did this? I did that when I was a kid. Wow, I want to see who these people are. So then they go and look at your resume, and we see what happens from there. Think of your cover letter as a need to convince the organization how they are going to benefit by having you as an employee. Okay, in other words, you need to hire me because I have the skills, the drive, the passion to help your company make more money. You might not quite put it that way, but you might. It just depends on your style, and it depends on the organization and what you are going for as a job. These might look familiar: attention, interest, desire, action. Think of the Monroe Sequence. You have to gain the reader's attention by stating facts, basic facts about the position that you're going for and some of your qualifications for that job. So in other words, you're restating, hey, I'm writing you this letter. Don't use the word hey. I'm writing to inquire about the position for such and such. I have a great passion in this. I saw your ad online on such and such site. Again, there's 100 different ways to do this. There's some good samples here. Again, if you go online and look at sample cover letters, you're going to be overwhelmed very quickly without even paying money as to the ideas that are out there. After you gain the attention, you got to keep the interest. You got to arouse that person's interest by expanding upon your strengths as they relate to the job that you're applying for. Not just a generalized strength, but that specific job. This is why I would be great at this job, because I have these skills. I have the experience that in your ad you're looking for. Okay. Again, it's persuasive. The desire. You have to demonstrate to the future employer that you desire to be considered for the job. Hey, I'm just kind of, spitballing and throwing it out there. I've sent out 1,000 resumes to 1,000 different jobs, and I'm just curious. Nope, garbage can. It won't even get that far. I am so interested in this job. I've dreamed about this job for years. I am just looking forward to working with your company. Again, 1,000 different ways to word this. Action. Suggest the action you are hoping for from this cover letter. After reading more about me, I hope that you will find my resume to even contain more information to show you why I am a benefit to your company. Again, 100 different ways to word this. So remember, cover letters have 4 main sections: the attention section, the interest section, the desire section, and the action section. And the action also is, I look forward to hearing from you. My phone number is, because you want to make it easy for them to get you, and my email, kent.edu, is ready and waiting for your response. And here's a quick sample. You can see the salutation or the greeting, paragraph 1, 2, and 3. Now, how you close is up to you. That's a personal style. Don't worry about postscript and closures and all that stuff. Again, most likely you're sending this in electronically, not a Word file. I'm going to tell you right now, if you send it as a Word file, it's bad. Save it as a PDF, which you can do in Word. If you're using Google Docs, you can still save it as a PDF. Send a copy. And make sure you name the file correctly too. Put your name, and I usually put a date in as a number code, just so I know when my resumes were going out of what date it was, because sometimes if you don't file your resumes right, you might send out an old one instead of an updated one, and you didn't delete the old one. So again, you got to think about all those things. Again, style. It's up to you on how you're going to do this. Again, here's a different type of cover letter too. The job interview. Now, they use the word mastering. I'm going to tell you right now, mastering the job interview, it only happens when you get the job. You have to practice, 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 practice. You need to make errors and fix the errors. Once you fix the errors, you're ready to really start mastering that interview to get the job, to get the paycheck, because that's what it's all about. Let's look at different types of job interviews. There's the face-to-face interview. That's the one most everybody's used to. That's where they tell you, okay, be here next Tuesday at 10 a.m. Make sure that you go to this building, that door, blah, 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 blah. Bring your resume. Great. Okay, that's easy. Mediated interviews. This is through video interviews. Pay attention to nonverbal communication too. Make sure everything that you do is accurate. Check your background too. The guy in this picture, he's actually got his pajama pants on and flip-flops below that suit and tie. What if there was a shelf behind him with something on it that the employer or the interviewer says, hey, let me see that trophy? I have one. Is that? And he stands up and he sees the pajamas. Not too cool. Dress the whole part if you're doing a video interview. Very, very important. Very important to check your background. Use a set of headphones if possible. I use microphone or speakers, but speakers can do feedback. You do not want squelching coming back at the interviewer. So the little set of headbuds, if you have big beats, it looks kind of silly. Again, what you have is what you have. Go with it. Okay. Make sure there's no weird emblems on your headset. Skull candy across some bones might be offensive to a hyper-conservative person. So be very careful of what's going on. Think of any distractions in your background. You might hear my dog barking in the background. I actually had to stop the recording to let her out. I told her I was recording, but she obviously didn't listen to me today. If I was interviewing today, she would be locked up and Benadrylled in the other room because she just loves to bark at things like that. But these are things we deal with, especially when we're doing online work. For the phone interview, you need to keep a notepad handy. And I would do that with a video too. If they see that you're writing things down. Now, don't write like you're in a lecture class, in a chemistry class or math class where you're just looking down at the pad. You got to look at the camera. But in a phone interview, it's different. Now, here's the thing. You probably have a cell phone that you're going to be talking on. Do not hold the cell phone against your shoulder and your ear. You ever cheek somebody off a phone call? Yeah, that can happen. Also, it can mumble, it could turn, it could fall. Hold it with your hands, sit up straight. Better yet, stand up and hold the phone as if you were on camera and people were watching you very closely. Use the person's name too, and do this in the video. So if I know your name, whoever you might be out there, and I say, hey, Mr. Smith, thank you very much for interviewing me today. You know what? Please just call me John. Okay, John, thank you very much for seeing me today. I'm really into this. John, what can I do to help you make a decision to hire me? Again, I'm just throwing out these weird questions and statements, but don't overuse their name either. It seems a little phony. Before you have the opportunity to meet a potential employer face-to-face, chances are you will be expected to participate in either a phone or video format interview. Expect this. My very first job in radio was a phone call. Guess what? I'm interviewing for a radio position. The phone was perfect. We did not have video back then. Face-to-face was impossible. It was 1,500 miles away. It was not going to happen. Now, today, if I was going for that radio interview, it probably would be on the phone. It would probably be also a Skype. It might actually be face-to-face. We don't know. But chances are it would just me talking into my microphone as if I was on the radio interviewing somebody, because that's how it would go down. At least that's how I think it would go down. First impressions count. This guy, would you hire him if he walked into your business? Well, it depends what kind of business you have. If it's a Goodwill store, maybe he's overdressed, okay? But if it's a professional setting, accountant, medical, law, probably not happening. First impressions are really critical. Now, you may not have a huge clothes budget. You may not have super nice clothes. There's ways of getting good clothes for less. You're just going to have to work at it. If you have one good set of clothes, and that's your interview set of clothing, keep them clean. Check them for spots, loose threads, buttons, anything you can, and work at it. And people can tell when you're going to do that. You've got 30 seconds to create a positive first impression. So I go with 8 to 10 seconds, but 30 seconds is a lot of time. A lot of times you'll come in, you'll shake hands, you'll ask, is it okay for me to sit here? Or they'll go, please have a seat over here in this chair and let's get going. Let me look at your resume real quick. Can I get you a glass of water, or, a bottle of water? You never know the style, but they're judging you. And you might say, nope, that's all right. Or no, thank you, I'm okay. Or maybe say, thank you, yes. It gets a little awkward because then what do you do with the water bottle? And if you knock it over on their desk or the floor, it's awkward. So think about these things when you go in. This is all about the perfect rules of engagement and your manners that you have. If you need better manners, you can work on it. Get on YouTube and say, what kind of manners should I have in my first job interview? And you will be overwhelmed with the amount of responses you will get from YouTube. But don't pay money for this unless you're going for the really big job. Okay? Ask people. Dress appropriately too. If I was in my suit and tie going for a landscape job, probably not going to happen. If I'm in my landscape clothes and I go for an office job, probably not going to happen. Now, in today's work environment, you really don't know how people dress. Do a little bit of investigation. Look on the website. If they're not models and they show real people, that's how they dress. You can always do a drive-by of the company if it's close by and just look at who's wearing what. I mean, have one of your friends go through if it's a retail store or a restaurant and see, hey, what colors are they wearing? Are they wearing t-shirts? Are they wearing polo shirts, button downs? Figure it out. What kind of shoes do they wear? Are they comfortable? Are they boots? Are they flip-flops? Are they clogs? Now, you can check all that stuff out because the more you look like them too in clothing, they're not thinking it, but it adds that extra little bit of connection. It can help out. Speak with clarity. The way you use your words can deeply influence the impressions other people get about you in a professional setting. So you don't want to walk in and just like you're talking to your friends, yo, dude, what's up, man? I am so happy to be here, and throw out a high five. Don't do that. Be careful. Avoid vocalized pauses that last more than 2 seconds. It means that you're not able to think clearly and quickly enough. You also want to be careful of like. Be careful of those. That's why I keep preaching to you. Don't say these words. Don't even think you're going to say them. Just don't say them. Keep working on that too. It takes a long time to do this. But hopefully by the end of the course, you'll actually notice in your speech that you've reduced the amount, if not eliminated, those key little fillers from your vocabulary. It'll make you feel really good about this too. Be careful of repetitive phrases. You might have a go-to phrase when you're nervous. Be careful. That's why you should always record yourself. Do a practice interview with people and listen to that interview. If you always say, yes, there was a time. Yes, there was a place. Yes, I remember when. Yes, careful. It looks silly. and it looks a little over-practiced, and it looks like you're kind of falling into a rut, and maybe they want somebody that doesn't fall into a rut. Unless they're like robots and automatons, then you're perfect for the job. Practice talking about your qualifications with clarity, confidence, and precision. Don't just use run-on sentences. I am great with kids because I respect them and I look down to them, and don't do that. I'm great with kids. Kids love me, and I really know how to work with them to get the most efficient use of our time together. You just got to be concise. You have to practice it. If I keep working on that statement, it's going to get better and better and better. Be careful of offensive language. What's offensive to you is probably offensive to somebody else. If nothing offends you, be aware that other people can be easily offended. Now, the swear words, here they are. Beep, 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 beep. I can't say them, okay? Because they can be offensive to you. Be careful of offensive things. Now, again, you got to determine what is offensive to somebody. Be very careful. Demonstrate interest in the job. If you go in and you just sit back and lean back in the chair, I'm going to do that here. Can you tell that I'm just kind of leaning back in my chair right now? I can't really put my feet up because then it's too far away from the mic. It'll pick up, but I'm kind of here for this job interview. And no, I'm not interested. But if I lean forward and I'm giving strong eye contact and direct vocal communication, I'm projecting my voice at you without being loud, that I'm showing interest in this job. By staring at somebody without blinking is scary. All right, blink. You are human. Your eyes get dry. Don't be afraid to blink. Now, if you over blink, bad. If you lick your lips too much, bad. Again, you might have a little bit of cotton mouth. Have a sip of water before you go in. Avoid the sugar and avoid the caffeine too. That's something they don't say in here, but I'm telling you. Watch your body language. Be careful of what your hands are doing. Smile a little bit. Nodding as if you're listening, but don't cock your head with that squinty eye thing going, like I know the inside joke thing. Be careful of that. Use a mirror and watch how you do it. Record yourself is the best way to do this, even better than a mirror. If you want, you can look at yourself in the black mirror of your cell phone and see what's going on. Pay attention to this. This is like your own acting class. You're the coach. If you don't like it, somebody else is probably not going to like it either. So be very, very careful about this. Sitting up straight is very important. Should you sit back in the chair or sit on the edge of the chair? I will warn you, if you sit on the edge of the chair and it's on wheels, it could move. So be very careful. I'm shorter. If I sit back in a chair and my feet don't hit the ground, I feel very uncomfortable. I've had that happen in an interview. It was a bunch of really tall people and they had all big furniture and I felt like a baby. It was not comfortable. But you want to sit with your feet flat on the ground. Sometimes we cross our ankles. I would say sit with feet flat on the ground. That puts you in a really good posture and it allows you to not wiggle as much too. That's another good thing. More tips for the interview. Understand the job. Okay, biggest mistake people have is, so what is this job about? Get out of here next. You got to know what you're interviewing for. If you're just going door to door, I did this as a kid. We would just literally walk into a business, knock on the door, open the door, say, hey, you hiring right now? What kind of jobs you got open? They, yeah, come on in. We'll hire you $2.35 an hour. They just wanted a warm body to move boxes in the back for a while. You didn't have to ask. Now you need to know ahead of time. You need to be smart enough to get on the internet to do some checking out on them. If the job description is to do light work and do manual labor, okay, well, what kind of manual labor? What's the name of the company? Get on their website and look at what they do. Because manual labor might be lifting boxes all day in a factory setting versus something that you thought might just be typing. There's a big difference, okay? Check this stuff out. You got to understand the job that you're interviewing for. Understand the company also. That website can tell you a lot. Now, if a company has a very weak and very shallow website, there may be something going on there. It could be it's a very private company, a very small company. It could be run by people who just aren't up to date on the whole internet thing. And that's possible. And they don't have to be old or young. It could just be people that don't want to waste their time on the internet, maybe because they want to go direct to the people. I have a friend and his wife, they sell jewelry. And I always ask them, why aren't you online selling this? That's not our clientele is their answer. I don't think it's the right answer, but basically they don't know how to do it. They don't want to take the time, and they believe face-to-face sales is much more important than selling to just anybody over the internet. They want to know their customers. They want to form relationships with their customers. That's great. They're not millionaires by a long shot. They don't want to be. They don't care about that. They just want to do what they do so they can live comfortably. But again, it depends on the company. So again, do your due diligence. Research the company. Research that job. Behavioral-based interview questions. You've got to know a couple different answers. Tell me a time when you worked with a group of people that was dysfunctional. What did you do and how did it turn out? That could be tricky. You need to be prepared for these. The funny thing is, in certain job tracks, there's lists on the internet. If you Google this stuff, you can find out lists of questions. Usually it's about 10 questions. Tell me about a time when. You need to be prepared for that. Have you ever been in a situation where? You need to be prepared for that. So here's the thing. You need to get these questions and you need to type them out, and then you need to make them concise enough where you can say them out loud, easy enough that it's natural and you can do it in one breath. You have to select examples that highlight important information about you, not just, well, I kind of saw it in my company, but I really didn't get involved in that, but I understand how to do it. That doesn't work. You could say, I've never been in that situation, but if I was, here's what I would do. Okay, so you got to come back for that. Explain the moral conclusion or lesson of a plan. What I learned from that experience was that when I'm working with other people, they also have opinions, attitudes, and feelings, and I had to work with them and negotiate. Ooh, negotiate. That's a good thing when working with groups. So again, you have to work on these things. Connect the lesson to the organization. So when I was working in this group, I learned that people have feelings and opinions, and I was able to negotiate with them. And if I understand correctly, the job in your company is working with other people, and I really think I could get along with just about anybody in any situation to negotiate a solution to resolve the problem to make you money, something. You got to know partially, if not wholly, some of these questions and answers already ahead of time. Some other things, job skills and overall work experience, you need to say out loud what your skill was, what your job was, what exactly you did to help them out. You need to show that you're intelligent. You need to show that you're mature and you have good judgment. You need to show responsibility. You know, it's not on the list, but accountability is one of my big things. It's above responsibility. You have to show that you can form relationships in a company that are positive, not negative. You have to be able to show that you're resourceful in fixing problems and maybe being more efficient in spending the company's money. That's a big thing. You have to show good work attitude. Yeah, I kind of, that job sucked and it really was, oops. That's not what an employer wants to hear. You have to show motivation. I look forward to going to work every day because it was really pumped up, blah, blah, blah. You also have to show leadership. Even if you're the lowest person on the ladder in the company, you are the least experienced person in that company, you still have to show leadership that begins with you. And I could turn you on to my 45-minute leadership speech I do online. Pretty cool stuff. If you need to know more about leadership, let me know and I'll get you that website. Building connections, huge thing. It's who you know. Use those ropes, chains, battleship chains, as they used to say. Who's on your side? Who can vouch for you? The first, and it's not a person, it's an entity that's going to vouch for you, is your social media. Now, think about this clearly. Social media, is it good or bad for you? Whatever your answer is, if you answered good, that means you've got a clean Facebook page. It doesn't have stuff on it that might be embarrassing. If it's bad for you, is it because somebody keeps blowing up your Facebook and doing bad things or posting you in pictures doing not good things or promoting violence or something that's not ethically correct to a conservative employer? Forget conservative, liberal, and all that. Assume that the person who's interviewing you is conservative. You're not going to lose from that point. You can have fun with that, but assume they're easily offended and they're going to be bored with you real quick and get rid of you if they find something bad in your social media. Be careful with social media. Please review your Facebook, MySpace, whatever it is you have, your Twitter accounts, LinkedIn. Please self-audit on this stuff. Go all the way back to the beginning. You know what? If you have pictures that it's the only place the picture is, download them and save them. Make a separate file. Listen, if you're going for a really high-end job, say with government job that does a lot of security checks, even teachers, anything you delete is still technically on the web. It's just hidden from quick view. So make sure that you're not getting stuff on there. So again, go back, self-audit, fix any errors that you might think are errors that could offend people, and really go through it. Have somebody else go through it too. Internships are great, excellent, beyond the best way to get to know a company and the people that probably are going to hire you for a real job if you're good at what you do. Internships are awesome in many ways because it gives you practical, hands-on experience within that company doing a job that you might actually end up getting paid for once you graduate, or maybe just before you graduate from college. It can also help you explore career options because some internships you think, wow, this would be so cool to get in there. And you get in there and you find out, you know what? This isn't even close to what I thought. Oh my gosh, I don't want to do this. That's a good thing to know before you commit yourself into a situation that's not good. It can also help you expand your professional network in many, many ways. It may not just be the owners of a company, but the direct managers or supervisors of you. It could also show your school, Kent State, and your teachers and the supervisory people above you that you're really into it. So when they get a job, maybe they pull you in with them. That could be a very, very good thing. The informational interview. There's things to do before, during, and after the interview. Before that interview, do your homework. Again, what job are you going for? What is the company like? You have to prepare proper answers. Now, there's good, bad, and ugly answers. Sometimes you might not have an answer. If you don't have an answer to one of their questions because it was one that you practiced, you know what? That's a great question. And then you can't just sit there. You have to say something. You know what? That's a great question. I've never really encountered that before. Do you want to know something close to what I've done about that? They might, yeah, please tell me about that. A lot of times you're going to go into a group of people with pads of paper. They won't even look at you unless they're waiting for the answer. And then as soon as you start talking, they look down and they start writing on their paper or typing on a laptop. I had that once before, and it's really weird. I felt like I was dictating to 6 administrative assistants. Really weird. It was a job I wanted, and I was highly qualified for it, except I don't speak 2 languages, which canceled me out. But it was what it was, and it was an experience. Let's put it that way. It taught me a few more things about interviews. Use a recorder to focus on the interview. In other words, record yourself with your phone, with your laptop, with your PC, with your Mac, whatever you got, record it. So do your preparation. Preparation gets you ready. Think of it as a sporting event. If you don't learn to throw a ball correctly or do certain gymnastic moves, you're going to fail. Okay? You have to practice. During the interview, remember, first impressions are the most important thing. When you walk through that door, you need to have a well-practiced handshake. If you've never practiced shaking hands, you need to start. Guys and girls alike need to. I can tell you a half a dozen times where I've gone in and my hand slipped and it turned a little goofy, and boy, was that embarrassing. But I was in sales after that, never messed up. And we practiced for weeks. We practiced how to shake hands, how your feet go, how your hips go, your shoulders, your eyes, your chin, everything. And you know what? I learned how to shake hands the right way by people who've been doing it for decades longer than me. Be flexible during the interview too. In other words, don't be so rock solid. This is what I'm going to talk about, and I don't want to talk about anything else. Think about the elbows moving away from your side, opening yourself up. You got to be loose, okay? Not that kind of flexible loose, but be flexible in your answers and your demeanor and how you're going to go about it. Because they might get in there and say, you know what, the job that you applied for actually closed, but after we further reviewed your resume, we believe that you'd be really good for this job too. Can we talk about that? No. I'm out of here. Sure, why not? If they think you're good for it, go for it. That's being flexible. You're being open-minded. If you close your mind off to any opportunities, you're going to be very limited in life. So open yourself up and be flexible to new things. Practice active listening techniques. Very important. It's not hearing, it's listening. So if I understood what you said, you can respond back to them. You have to practice these things, though. There's seminars on this stuff. There's thousands and thousands of seminars on these things. Allow the interviewer to ask questions. They need to ask questions to know more about you. Sometimes they'll even ask you, so, do you have any questions for us? This is the toughie. Okay. Be prepared. Yeah, so how much do I get paid on my vacation, and do I get more than 2 weeks? No, that is not a question. You have to ask, so what kind of dress should I wear? Or, is there anything extra that I can add to the information that you asked that might help me, better get the job? Again, there's so many questions. Get online, do some due diligence, do your research on this stuff, or better yet, get to the career counselors at Kent State and ask them, what kind of questions can I ask an employer? There's lists and lists of these things. After the interview's over and you leave, go jot down some of your thoughts on this in case there's follow-up interviews. And a lot of times there are. What did you think? Did you do okay? Did you make mistakes? Even if you don't get a call back, you can learn from that. If you do get a call back and there's a second interview at the next level, maybe at a regional office versus a local office, you need to know what you said, because maybe you changed something. Go over all your check marks and your checklist, whether they're mental or written down, typed down. Go back through those and all that. Send a thank you note. Now, emails are great. It's even better. Snail mail. Wow. Now, I've got really bad handwriting. I don't like to write things, so I send emails. But I've typed up letters and said thank you very much at the end of it and sent those back. You could send a pre-printed thank you card and sign your name. There's all kinds of ways around that. If you have very neat, awesome handwriting, hey, stick a stamp on it, get it in the mail, because I guarantee you, you're one of the few that are going to be doing that for that job. Add the interviewer to your professional network, LinkedIn. Now, it's not, sending an apple to the teacher thing. It just shows that you're interested. Okay. I don't know if I would do it before the interview so much. Do it after the interview. You could do it before the interview. Looks a little strange sometimes, but that's okay. Because remember, if you add somebody to LinkedIn or you request their friendship, they are going to see a notification on their phone or computer that you want to befriend them. It's a really good tool with LinkedIn. You're going to have to research it if you don't know about it. Once you get up into the real world of real jobs, post-graduation, you're going to probably be using that to get further jobs. But remember, anything you post on there, your current employer probably will see it too. So think about that as part of the social media. I want to say that's it for jobs, but it's not even close, okay? Getting a job is the goal of going to college, or going to college is a waste of time and money, okay? You're going to finish college, you're going to graduate, you're going to get the job. To get the job, you got to go through the interview. To get the interview, you got to get the resume produced, you got to do the cover letter, you got to get people to read the cover letter, to read the resume, to give you the interview, to give you the job, okay? Very simple process, just a little bit tougher to deal with when it's us.